My name is Danny Moylan,
Logan Top.
And I'm Alex Scoville.
and this is our presentation over global climate change. So our introduction. Global climate change is the gradual change in the average temperature around the whole world at a given time. According to the University of Iowa, global warming occurs when carbon dioxide and other pollutants collect in the atmosphere and absorb sunlight and solar radiation that had bounced off the Earth's surface. Normally, this radiation would escape into space, but the theory is that pollutants trap the heat and cause the planet to get hotter. Greenhouse gases are known as GHG. According to the US EPA, the largest contributor to the greenhouse effect is burning fossil fuels. Examples include coal-burning power plants and transportation. In fact, transportation, electricity, and industry account for more than 72% of all greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases include carbon dioxide, CO2, methane is CH4, which is 11%. We have our nitrous oxide, which is nitrogen dioxide in this point, NO2. And then we have fluorinated gases, which is 3%. Synthetic gases, including hydrofluorocarbons, which are highly toxic to the environment. And then we have particulate matter as well.
Now, it's been a wide-going social debate that everyone's very familiar with, that scientists and media are trying to pin the greenhouse effect on cows. And as you can see, CNN published this on January 24th of 2023. Bill Gates backed startup tackling cow burps and farts. Here on USA Today, cow farts are bad for Earth, but cow burps are worse. New plan could help cows belch less. And here on PBSO News Weekend, cow burps are a major contributor to climate change. Can scientists change this? Instead of the many other greenhouse gases that widely affect the environmental impact. This is our take. We all come from livestock backgrounds, so this all kind of hits home. Some people say reducing beef consumption will solve the world's GHG problems. We believe a much more sensible approach would be to reduce transportation instead of reducing cattle production, and not only transportation, but the overall burning of fossil fuels around the world. Let's kind of work through the science that backs all of that. What kind of intrigued us the most is going back to the COVID-19 pandemic. It shows that cattle are really not to blame for GHG production. During the pandemic, transportation was greatly reduced as people stayed home for obvious reasons, while cattle numbers remained the same and GHG production fell. Cattle production stayed the same because nobody was out on the road selling their cattle, and as cattle were reproducing, the cattle numbers actually increased. And let's get into more of the numbers that back that information up. According to Simon Evans at Carbon Brief, as of April 2020, the pandemic was set to cause the largest annual decrease in CO2 emissions. Another report published by the Nature Climate Change in May of 2020, the approximate drop in global emissions was 17%, which was the largest decrease in emissions occurred in China, followed by the US. And this chart shows daily global CO2 emissions from fossil fuels, and you can see how they're rising all the way up to about 2020, where it fell off during the pandemic. And through the whole pandemic, the live cattle stayed the same and actually increased, according to the USDA Cattle on Feed report. States that in July of 2020, which is right before everything started to shut down, there were 103 million live cattle on feed, just above the 102.9 million in July of 2019.
And diving even further into the numbers on that and tying that back to climate change, we have here the World Cattle Inventory, ranking it by countries, and then the total greenhouse gas emissions per country from 2019. And when we look at the top three on this, we have India, Brazil, and the United States. For cattle numbers, we can pretty quickly see when we look at Brazil that they only produce 1% of the total greenhouse gas emissions, and this is across all gases, including carbon dioxide, methane, and everything else. They have the second most cattle in the world at over 244 million, but they only produce 1% of the greenhouse gases. The United States and India are up there as well, but they have large manufacturing industries that contribute to the carbon dioxide production as well as other greenhouse gases. So it gets pretty easily sorted out when we can compare these two together. And focusing on methane specifically, which is when cattle, which are ruminant animals, which they burp out regularly, methane in the atmosphere can be up to 28 times more impactful than carbon dioxide on our climate change, and that's according to the European Union's Methane Commission that's working towards solutions to fight methane in our atmosphere. And what they mean by that is methane in the atmosphere is 28 times more effective at holding heat towards the earth when compared to carbon dioxide. And connecting this back to something that we talked a lot about in class is ozone production. So methane, in the presence of hydroxyl radicals, which are highly reactive molecules in the atmosphere, methane undergoes a series of chemical reactions known as oxidation. These reactions lead to the conversion of methane into carbon dioxide and water. As methane is oxidized, one of the intermediate byproducts is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide helps in the formation of ozone, along with other volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, can play a role in the production of ozone. Ozone forms in the atmosphere when nitrogen oxides and VOCs react in the presence of sunlight. When carbon monoxide alone doesn't directly lead to ozone formation, it can participate in the formation of those VOCs, which lead to ozone production. So what can be done? Our three main solutions that we'd like to talk about today is alternative energy sources, livestock feed efficiency, and personal changes we can make in our own lives. There are many alternative energy sources available in the world, but we're going to talk about kind of the four main ones. So solar power has been around for a while, and there's a high upfront cost of producing and making solar panels, but after they are made and then installed, there are no further greenhouse gases output by them, and as newer technology is being created, they're increasing the efficiency of solar panels by over 40%, so creating 40% more electricity. Looking at wind energy, which Kansas produces a lot of, there's an average of 11 grams of CO2 emissions per kilowatt hour of electricity produced from wind. Comparing that to natural gas and coal, natural gas is at 450 grams and coal is at 1,000 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. So not very efficient in their emissions. Looking at hydropower or dams or water, we can utilize both natural sources like putting dams on rivers and then also manufacturing wastewater and how that flows, they can capture that energy. And then kind of the benefit to us is there's a 15 to 30% consumer cost savings associated with utilizing hydropower and how that savings is passed on in grabbing that electricity. Nuclear power does not have the best public image and it has a huge upfront cost, but once it is functioning, there is zero carbon emissions from those power plants. And then the increasing livestock feed efficiency. So this gets into some pretty in-depth stuff that they teach a lot of classes on in Weber Hall. But research similar to what is done here at K-State has showed that when we increase the feed efficiency in livestock, so that's the pounds of feed that are fed to the animal compared to the output of them in pounds of meat or milk production, if we increase their feed efficiency, then they will produce less methane in their lifetime. This primarily relates to market animals and how they are, when they spend less days on feed and alive, they don't output as much methane. And the main ways we can do this in increasing feed efficiency is through changing genetics and tracking the animals that have higher feed efficiency, changing up their feed ingredients, and then changing our overall management practices and how we treat those cattle.
And something that we can do on our own is electric cars. It may be a little controversial to some people, but in the long run it really does help because zero tailpipe emissions, including CO2, NO2, SO2, and O3, electricity can be from renewable sources. And then just turning the lights off, something as simple as that. Many simple changes can be made at home to reduce the total amount of electricity you use, reducing your impact on the environment.
And kind of to wrap everything up, we do realize that global climate change is a real issue. It's been going on for a while, and it won't be a slow process to kind of change the path that we're going on right now. The choices that we make impact it. Everything you do, whether it's leaving the lights on, taking a 10-minute shower instead of a 5-minute shower, little things we do as well as big things such as driving your car every day, boarding an airplane, or the feed efficiency of cattle. Everything that we do really does impact it. With the numbers that we showed you, cow farts really are not to blame. There are things that us as ranchers can do to help the case, but cattle are not the main issue, and I think we need to focus on the bigger issues such as transportation and other burning of fossil fuels. And solutions are available, and it's a slow progression. It won't happen overnight, but I think us as ranchers, we can take small steps to help improve our environment, and I think there's also big things that people in bigger cities can do. But if we all make a concerted effort to do the little things as well as kind of speak your voice on the bigger things, I think we can get it done. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was
12 minutes.
How about it,
I
boys?
think that was it.
That's it. Let's go into YFN.